is someone going to figure out what the heck is wrong with me? When is the pain going to go away? When are these ulcers going to go away? Am I ever going to be normal again?
This is my friend Debbie. We are going to talk about her journey. She has gone on a big journey. As you can see, she was vibrant, she was healthy, she was strong, she was conquering the world. She came down with a very rare form of leukemia, and we want to put this out there because this is so rare, and I think it's something that everybody should know. Welcome to Angela's Hangout.
All right, so my name's Debbie, and I was diagnosed with leukemia February of 2021, and this is my cat Shadow. He wants to be part of it. Anyway, so I just kind of wanted to share my story and get it out there because it is a rare leukemia, only 1 in 50 million. Is it 50? Sorry, I have to have my notes. I think
She tells me all the time that she still has cancer brain. This is her
chemo brain.
Okay, this is her excuse for a memory lapse. Mine is old age, but hers is just,
It's chemo brain. It's horrible. 1 in 5 million have it. So it is very rare. So anyway, the story is the very beginning of October of 2020, I was actually on a hike, and I kind of started feeling something, but I was like, whatever. And then I went out that night when I was eating. I really felt like a canker sore on my tongue. And I was like, oh, that happens sometimes.
Must have been something I ate or something. That's what I always think.
Yeah,
Did I have too many oranges?
Or I bit my tongue.
Yeah.
Or anyway, I'm like, I have stuff at home. I'll just throw that on there and I'll be good to go. So I didn't have any other symptoms. And then every week it just kind of like progressively got worse. Like more sores started coming up on my tongue, on my gum area, and things were changing. And then I noticed that it was really hard to eat like meats or anything kind of hard. And so I did call my doctor and everything, and she ran some labs and everything. And so meanwhile, by the end of October, I was basically down to eating applesauce, pudding, and Jell-O, and it was getting hard to drink.
Oh, Jell-O, I remember that.
Yeah, I don't like Jell-O or applesauce to this day. And it was really hard to get down water. I mean, soda, juice, anything else was out the door because it burned my throat so bad. So I knew something was going on other than canker sores by this time. And so the results from all my blood tests said that I had herpes. And the herpes, like cold sores and stuff that you get in your mouth. And you have that type because you get cold sores. And I always get one when I get too much sun. So I'm like, so this literally...
I get them when I'm in the sun, or wind. The wind does it
Oh,
to
the
me.
wind.
I always get them in the corner of my mouth.
Yeah, I get them there a lot.
So be careful. Be aware of something like that.
Yeah, seriously. But I'm like, this can't be it can't be that. Anyway, they threw me on medication for herpes, and it wasn't working. And so November 11th of 2020 is the first time I went to the ER because I wasn't eating. I literally stopped. I was just trying to get water down. I would crush ice really, really small and let it melt. I was trying to eat popsicles and just let it melt. And it just, and the pain was horrible. Like the pain was just like glass in my mouth, I guess you can say. And it just constantly hurt.
Wasn't it going in the sores were in your throat?
Yeah, in the end, they were ulcers. The ulcers were all over my mouth, down my throat, down my esophagus, and on my voice box because I couldn't talk either because it hurt so bad. So that's why they're on my voice box. And so November 11th was the first time I went to the ER and told them what my doctor said. And the doctor in the ER at that time, she looked and she's like, these are not herpes. They do not look like this. She goes, I don't know what this is. And they took more blood tests. And
wait, was this the time when you went in there and there was like, I've never seen, and all these people
Yes.
kept coming in? They all wanted to see what your mouth looked like.
Yes.
They've never seen anything like this.
Yeah,
before.
it spread throughout the ER, and like, yeah, the nurses were coming in, the PAs were coming in. Can I see your mouth? And I'm sitting there in pain. I'm like, yeah, I guess.
She called me from the hospital telling me this story. Like, all these nurses are coming in because they've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, they did. And they look and they're like, wow, I've never seen anything like that before. And here I am. I'm like,
And they're like, is it okay if I take a look at your mouth?
yeah, it was so funny. I was going to start charging them. And so anyway, they had me on an IV because I was dehydrated or just about. And they did put some pain medicine in there, and it did help a lot.
So this is all within just like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I remember we were supposed to do something for Halloween.
Yes.
And then, so this was November
11th. Yeah. A little over 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
That's how fast it was progressing. Like Halloween, I could talk for like maybe a half hour, and then after that, I
She called me and she was like, we were supposed to go to my daughter's house to help her decorate, and she was having a Halloween party, and then she called and she's like, I don't think I can do it. I have a really bad canker sore. And I'm like, suck it up. It's a canker sore. Well, I didn't know, so.
Yeah, no, I was only eating applesauce pudding. Yeah,
I felt so bad.
Yeah, and then 11 days later,
I'm like, she's acting like a dude.
I'm in the hospital, and anyway, so that's all they did. They didn't know what to do. They just gave me the IV pain medication and said, you need to talk to your doctor, and sent me on my way. Okie doke. So I left, and with nothing really.
Is that when they gave you steroids or no?
No, not yet. So then I went home and did what I was doing, crushed ice, tried to get a popsicle, and the pain was just getting worse and worse. I literally, this is how I couldn't lay down because that made the ulcers hurt too much. So I literally sat on this couch and I slept like this. And I'd just sit here, I'd hold my mouth, and then if I pressed my mouth against the cushion, that pressure kind of helped it a little. I mean, icing my mouth didn't.
That's how you had to sleep and everything?
That is how I slept for months.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did. I sat there curled up. Sometimes I'd cry. I crushed up Advil, Motrin, you name it. I tried it. I'd crush it. I'd somehow get it down. I mixed it with the ice and crushed it all together, and that's how I got it down. And it took the edge off, but it didn't get rid of the pain. So during this time, I went also and saw an ear, nose, and throat doctor because they told me to. The hospital did. And they put me on some antibiotic because they thought it was one thing. And then it wasn't doing anything. And then I went back and saw another doctor. He had no idea what it was. He just gave me some Oxy. And I wasn't really familiar with that at the time. I'm so familiar with drugs now, it's not even funny.
She runs a pharmacy now.
I do. So I would crush up the Oxy.
Not for distribution, just saying. She has her own, like if you have, she knows exactly what you need at any time.
If there's any type of a problem, I've got something for it.
Or she can tell you what you
need. Anyway, so I would crush the Oxy, mix it with my ice, let it go down that way, and it helped a lot. That helped a lot. Like I was able to get some sleep. I was able to lay on the pillow on the couch by that time, as long as I was propped up a little. So anyway, but I still couldn't eat. Everything's still the same. So then on November 22nd, so was that 2 weeks later? From November 11th.
Yeah, we're still not even a month into it yet.
To November 22nd, I was at the table crushing up my Oxy, and then all of a sudden, I got really dizzy. Everything was getting dark. My hearing was going, and I'm like, I'm so gonna pass out. So
By the way, I literally talked to her like 5 minutes before this happened, and she's like, I'm feeling okay.
Yeah, I was, and then boom, like that, it just hit me. And my mom was here at the time, so I told her, you need to call 911, I'm going to pass out. So they were around the area, and the ambulance came quick. And my blood pressure dropped to like, I don't know what it was, 40 over 20 or something.
Really low.
Or 30 over 10, something crazy low. So anyway, they put me in the ambulance, took me to the hospital, and the doctor that was there was the one that saw me before, and she's like, you need to be admitted, and we're going to admit you. She hooked me up, I was admitted, and I thought, oh good, just get rid of this pain. I don't want to be in this pain anymore. I mean, gosh, it hurts so unbelievably bad. And and all these doctors are coming in and trying to talk to me, and I couldn't. I'm just like, yeah, I already came in here and they didn't know what to do. That's how I had to talk. So while I was in there, they've never seen a case like this before, so of course ran a ton of blood tests, and they actually tested me for leukemia and lymphoma. And they did, so I also was very swollen in my neck. My lymph nodes were very, very swollen. I mean, you can see it, and it was very uncomfortable. And my lymph nodes in my groin area were swollen because they, did a CT scan when I got there, like pretty much right away. And so I had a biopsy on my groin lymph nodes. They took the most swollen one out of my neck. Can't really see the scar.
I can see a little bit of a scar right there.
Yeah, they did that. They actually took a biopsy of one of the ulcers that was actually on my tongue.
That must have hurt.
It wasn't pretty. I mean, I was put under.
Your mouth is going through so much already.
Yeah.
And to take a piece.
I didn't want them to. I'm like, is this going to hurt more than it already does? Because I don't need more pain on top of this pain. And they're like, no, it'll be uncomfortable because of the stitches and blah, 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 blah. But it'd be really helpful if we can have...
You're like, can you just take my tongue off?
I know, that is how I felt.
I don't want it anymore.
If we can actually have a biopsy of actually what's in your mouth. And that made sense. I'm like, you know what? You guys just do what you need to do. But I was under because they also did this. And they put a feeding tube in me at that time too, because I literally wasn't eating at all. And they kept giving me like Ensures, and I just asked for ice, and they kept giving me my soups and stuff for dinners, and I'm like, I can't eat that, whatever. So finally they put me on, before the feeding tube, they put me on the intravenous feeding, just through my IV. So I could get some nutrition in me, and I was on that for like 2 weeks. Meanwhile, all the test results for the leukemia and lymphoma all came back negative. And they did those tests a couple times, and they also ran for other cancers. It all was negative. And I actually had one of the best oncologists in town, and he was super good. He's one of the ones that saved me.
We live in a very small town.
Yeah. Dr. Dickman, and he kept saying, this looks like leukemia. He was so baffled. So he kept seeing me every day. So what they decided to do was, wait, let me make sure I'm not leaving anything out. So they kept me on antibiotics this whole time too, thinking it would do something, but it did nothing. And so they decided it was an autoimmune disease. And they were looking that it was vasculitis, because vasculitis affects, I can't even remember anymore, like how your blood is doing something and it could cause ulcers in your mouth. And I'm like, cool, that makes sense. So I needed to see a rheumatologist.
So that was an autoimmune disorder, is what they projected it to be?
Yeah, and so then they put me on a high dosage of prednisone, steroids. They put me on 80 milligrams, stuck the feeding tube in me, and told me I need to see a rheumatologist right away. And
mind you, she's losing weight like crazy at this point.
Yeah, by that time I probably had already lost like 45 pounds since October, and we're only going into December.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I was. And I didn't care because I was in too much pain. So they didn't really give me any painkillers to take home. They gave me some mouthwash stuff to use.
I remember that.
Magic, whatever it was called. I don't know. I mean, it did take the edge off for about 5 minutes. But that's all they did. And they discharged me on December 5th. And so I'm like, okay, I guess it's all in the rheumatologist's hands. So I get out, and of course the rheumatologist doesn't have room for me until June. And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait 6 months. Are you kidding? I'll be dead by then. So
Literally.
Meanwhile, my...
with the feeding tube.
Yes, I had the feeding tube, and the prednisone started working like after a few days. It brought the inflammation down in my throat, so I was able to swallow soft foods, and I was able to drink. So I was like, cool. And then by this time though, my feeding tube was leaking really bad. Like I'd feed myself and it just poured out of me, and I would put towels right there and it soaked them in a second. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it started bleeding. And so...
Wasn't that on your way to a doctor's appointment when it started bleeding?
Yeah, I had an appointment with Dr. Dickman, you were right. And I got there, and yeah, it was bleeding, it was pouring liquid, and it hurt so bad. And they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, just take it out.
She's driving herself around everywhere,
I know.
too. Like, I literally live right down the street. Like, no,
I'm like,
we're like a mile away from each other. And she's just driving herself everywhere. She drives herself to the ER. Like, I would have been calling her, oh my God, I hurt. Help me.
No, that's how I am. And so,
She's
anyway.
got blood gushing and stuff. And she's like, I'll just drive myself.
I'll just drive myself to my doctor's appointment. And so, anyway, yeah, we get in there like, oh, wow. And it hurt really bad. It was burning really bad. And I'm like, just take this thing out. I can eat now. I'm good.
You're like, what are the Percocet? What did you say? What was it that they were giving you?
Oh,
Prednisone?
Prednisone, the steroid.
You're like, yeah, that's fine.
That's the magic pill right there. So anyway, so they're like, okay, we're going to call radiology and have you go in there and have them take it out. Thank you. Anyway, that took a few hours, and it was kind of a nightmare. And so...
a lot of waiting in the parking lot, I remember.
Yes, I did, because I didn't want to drive home and drive back. I didn't have that much energy. So I waited for a few hours, and then went into radiology, and the girl there, she already kind of knew me. People are starting to know me because I was in the hospital forever. And then, so she took it out, and oh my gosh, did it hurt so bad. And it kept oozing out liquid, and she says it's not supposed to be doing that. And I'm like, of course not. Nothing with me and this illness is easy. So she's like, I'm taking you to the ER, and you're going to have first priority. You're a VIP now. I'm like, that's right, homie. So she did. She got me in, and they ran tests and said I had a little hole in my stomach. So they don't want air to get in, all this other stuff. So they admitted me again, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I had only been out of the hospital for 10 days, and I was readmitted. I just wanted to cry. So anyway, that whole thing, I was only in for 2 nights, 3 days.
You have to know a little bit of history about Debbie too. I've known her for years, and she is a runner. In fact, Runner Deb is her name.
Yep.
She is a runner. She's done marathons. She's challenged herself like beyond. What'd you do for your 40th birthday?
I just swam 40 laps, rode 40 miles on a stationary bike, and ran 40 laps around the track. I did that for my 39th and 40th.
See, she's crazy to me.
Like a mini triathlon.
I am like, I'll take 4 steps. I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. And we used to joke. We used to work together, and she would like. We had a gym where we worked, and I just sit there. She's over there. And I'm going, what's wrong with you? That's where we met, was at work.
Yeah.
Like, there's something seriously wrong with this girl.
Yeah, and I was into CrossFit. I loved weightlifting, and I love hiking and
Still do.
yeah, and
Even after everything she's been through, like literally Montana to Euro, she did this 3 miles out there.
no,
Just the other day.
6.3.
Sorry. I stand corrected. Oh, it was only 6.3.
Yeah.
Probably not her goal of 25 or something. I don't know.
Note to everybody, I shouldn't have done that, but that's how I am.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to tell everybody like how active of a person you are.
No.
Because it really does. It's important.
It is.
To stay active throughout this whole process.
Yeah. Yes, and I was going to bring that up too. It is very important. And, when I was going through this and had all the pain and I couldn't function, I didn't even care about exercise. I mean, my only focus was get rid of the pain. That's all I cared about in life. So anyway, got the stupid feeding tube under control. They released me on the 3rd day. And so then after that, once the hole closed up, it took a little bit longer to close up because of the steroids. I went back to work. Oh, November 8th was my last day of work. I couldn't work anymore. I had a pretty physical job. And there was just absolutely no way. I mean, I wasn't sleeping at night. The pain was unbearable. I wasn't eating, drinking. I couldn't really talk. And my last days at work, that's how I was. I'd be like, okay, what do you want me to do? I mean, it was horrible. So anyway, so then the steroids were helping really well. I mean, I could still only eat soft foods, and then my hole closed up finally. And I was like, I need to go back to work because, like, I could sit at work and earn money versus sitting at home doing nothing. And so I went back to work, and during this time, I was lowered from 80 milligrams to 60 milligrams on the steroids because they didn't want me to stay on a high dosage if I didn't need to. So just that 20 milligrams they lowered affected me like that. By my 4th day at work, I was back to square one. I couldn't function anymore. And
With the mouth sores and everything?
Yep. I couldn't eat again. And my boss is like, Debbie, just go home and take care of yourself and let yourself get figured out. Don't worry about work. And I'm like, okay.
We did work for a very good company.
Yeah. So, and my boss was great. So I left and I haven't been back since. But November 8th is when I actually went out, and then I went for 4 days in January, and that's of 2021, and that was it. So in February, meanwhile, so it's just getting worse. I don't know what to do. No doctors know what to do. So in February 1st, I believe it was, of 2021, I told the rheumatologist people, put me on your list of cancellations as top priority. I cannot wait that long. I explained to them what was going on. I had Dr. Dickman call them because he knew who they were. So they did get me in for a cancellation. So I believe it was February 1st. I had my appointment. And that doctor, I did blood panels for him also, and he couldn't really see anything that was wrong with me either. And just like my regular doctor and the hospital. And so he said, he looked at my mouth and da-da-da-da-da. He goes, it looks like you probably have Beset. That's an autoimmune disease. He goes, you have all the symptoms. It's a little bit worse than I've normally seen, of course. And so I was like, okay, cool. So he said, I'm going to start you on a medication, but I need to lower your steroids because I was back up to 80 when things started getting worse. After I left work, they put me back to 80. And so he said, I'm going to lower it to 40, I think he did. And
it's dangerous to stay on steroids.
That's exactly why Dr. Dickman wanted it lowered. And so, but trust me, 80 milligrams is nothing compared to what I was on for the rash, which I'll get to. So anyway, so I started this medication for Beset, whatever, an autoimmune disease. And I went down to 40 milligrams. And by the 2nd day, everything was coming back again. And I mean, hurting really bad again. I called him. Oh, he's on vacation. Well, can somebody help me? I'm kind of back to square one almost, and I thought this would help. So anyway, so they got a hold of him. He said, oh yeah, well, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. I'm like, what medication works that way? Seemed weird to me, but I'm like, what do I know? I'm not a doctor. And so, anyway, and then they
I
ordered.
just like to play one on TV.
Exactly. So then they ordered me, the mouthwash I already had that, will help take the pain away, which only helps for like 5 seconds. And so then I'm living like that again, frustrated. And by this time, I was just in so much pain. I didn't know what to do. And then I started breaking down. I started crying all the time, not because of depression, just because why can't I get figured out? When is someone going to figure out what the heck is wrong with me? When is the pain going to go away? When are these ulcers going to go away? Am I ever going to be normal again? Am I going to get through this? I mean, I literally stopped eating, drinking. I couldn't talk to my kids, and that was hard for them, and it was horrible. I didn't know what to do. I felt lost. The doctors didn't know. They had no idea what was wrong with me. So I basically felt like I was going to have this forever. And there was nothing to take the pain away. I was taking Motrin, 4 Motrins every 4 hours, crushing it up. And then it was getting to the point to where I just couldn't even swallow that. And then when I would swallow the water from the crushed ice, it would go up into my sinuses. It just wouldn't go down anymore. So then finally, it was really bad, and I was losing my mind. So finally, on February 10th, just almost 2 weeks after the rheumatologist visit, I saw Dr. Dickman. And my lymph nodes got swollen again. Everything just happened again, back to square one. And I saw him, and he was like, oh my gosh, Debbie. He says, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know, I feel exactly how I did before. And so, they always check your weight, and he said, you've lost like 20 pounds since, or over 20 pounds since like January. I'm like, or the end of December.
You're like, woohoo!
I know. I don't know, whatever it was.
No, just kidding.
But I was down.
You're like concerned.
Yeah, I was down like 60 pounds now. And he said, you look very lethargic. How are you feeling? I'm like, I'm feeling like I just want to die at this point, no one knows what's wrong with me. So bless him, he said, he kind of fiddled around with his computer for a while, and he specializes in this, and he is a great doctor, and he didn't even know what was wrong with me, but he swore up and down it was leukemia. But since the test results weren't saying that, what can he do? So he said, you know what, Debbie, we can't help you here. I want you to go to the ER. I'll tell him you're coming, and I'm going to get you admitted again. So the doctor that's on call then will call. He has to be the one to call your insurance company and get you approved to either go to UCLA or Stanford. Those are the main really good hospitals close to where we live. And I'm like, he says, are you okay with that? I'm like, whatever you need to do. I can't live like this anymore. So I went home, packed up my stuff. In my mind, I'm like, cool, I'm going to go to one of these hospitals. They're going to figure me out. I'll be back home in like a month. So
I remember that.
yeah, I'm like, no problem. My mouth will be good. I'll be eating again. So then,
I was also confident that was going to happen. I'm like, hey, where do you want to go first?
yeah, I know. I know.
Okay.
I know. So anyway, I go to the hospital, get admitted, blah, blah. And they weren't doing anything for me. By this time, when I went in the hospital the first time for the 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks, whatever it was, I forgot what pain medication they were giving me, but it worked. But I can only take it every 6 hours. but it didn't work that well. I mean, it took the edge off, and I was able to like get some sleep. But anyway, so then when I went for this last time, they were giving me morphine, which helped. But I kept telling him, can you give me more milligrams? Can you give me more milligrams? I don't know why you guys are giving me such a low milligram. Did you not see what's going on here? It was a bad hospital stay that time. And so anyway, they got me approved to go to Stanford, which is north of us, a little over 200 miles north of us. And it's in the Bay Area where I happened to be born and raised until high school. And so both of my brothers live there. So it worked out wonderfully. We're very blessed to have it work out like that, like more than you can imagine. So they threw me in the ambulance and off I go for a 3.5-hour ride in the ambulance.
And it only cost $15,000.
And my ambulance bill is only $15,000 for that one. No, my insurance doesn't cover it. So thank you. I'll be paying that one forever. So anyway,
that's just one of many.
Yeah. So anyway, so Stanford was great. Stanford is what I think like the second or third best hospital in the United States, in case no one knows. So I knew I was going to have great care, and I was very confident that they would be able to help me. So I was happy to go. And so they were waiting for me when I got there. They had my room ready, and when I got in there, man, let me tell you, there was just doctors all up on me. They had me testing and taking blood and doing this and doing that. I got there like at 4, 5 in the afternoon, I think, and they were like testing me till almost 10 at night. I mean, they did a biopsy on me, a couple of biopsies on some ulcers. I had some ulcers in my anus area that were starting, and they also did another lymph node test on my groin. I don't even remember. I was so out of it. And so it was great though. And I had so many different specialists come in, a dermatologist, a rheumatologist, the hematologist. I mean, just all these people. And
I felt like she was on an episode of Grey's Anatomy. I even asked her, is this like Grey's Anatomy?
I know, and I'm like, this is great. And so
it gets even better.
They gave me painkillers, and anyway, so then a few days later, they're like, well, we need to do a bone marrow biopsy on you. And I'm like, I don't care what you need to do, just friggin' do it. And so I thought they put you under for that, but they don't. And I wish they did. I've had so many now. I think I've had 4 or 5, and I'm going to be having them for the rest of my life. Yay! But so they did that, and it hurt like a mother. And even though they, numb you up really well, boy, does it hurt. One part. Anyway, so then they moved me to downstairs to where the blood cancer unit, and because they knew I had something going on with my blood. And so anyway, there's a lot of stories I could tell you during that hospital stay.
All right, we're going to stop it right here because there's still so much more to cover. We're going to break it up into little parts where she gets to Stanford, and then she gets her diagnosis, and then her treatment, and then we'll do her aftercare and what she's going through right now. So anyway, stick around for part 2. And like I said, if this could help just one single person, this is so worth her time, let me tell you. So anyway, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye now.
Yeah, definitely.